Today I'm going to talk about the military aid cut from United States for Afghanistan. Especially this is important in the backdrop of Doha peace deal between the Taliban and United States. The question is complete collapse or a ray of hope. United States is very much involved in the future of Afghanistan. And the reason is that American economic aid, military assistance, and its mode of withdrawal from the region, that is the question of the question. And in this background, I'm going to speak about the subject under discussion. Doha Accord, which was signed between United States envoy Zalmay Khalilzad and Taliban's leader Mullah Ghani brother, in the presence of Secretary of State of US Mike Pompeo, in fact, it continues to stir much commotion in Afghanistan's social and political setup. National and international actors are still struggling to keep Afghanistan a secure country, militarily as well as economically. However, the question of the question is, will America again take the decisions in haste during the end game? Three end games have taken place in Afghanistan since 1979. One was 1981-82 when Americans in haste withdrew, and then the second one was in 2014 when Obama was withdrawing from here, his forces, and now is once again the question. The total cost of the raise Afghan army is $90 billion. It provides around $4 billion financial assistance to maintain security forces in Afghanistan per year, and an economic aid of almost $500 million. Moreover, international donations, they finance 75% of Afghanistan's public expenditures per year. Keeping in this view, Doha peace process was to settle an almost 2 years long efforts for a war that has lasted for nearly 2 decades. The presence of US in the presence of the US in all forms, be it military, political, or social, has been essential in molding the country, and this is the very reason Pompeo recently announced a cutting of $1 billion of US aid to Afghanistan on 23rd of March this year that I spoke about in the beginning, which has left many people scratching their heads, rather anxious for the entire region. This action was taken to relay a warning to the Afghan government in order to settle the dispute between the two presidential rivals. One won and the other was runner-up, but both declared their presidency on the same day. I'm talking about President Ashraf Ghani and Dr. Abdullah. Maintaining security forces, military as well as police, is very important for Afghanistan. Dr. Ashraf Ghani has quoted and stated that survival of Afghanistan without American aid would not be more than 6 months, a manifestation of its role in the country. Forming the backbone of the country through financing various forms of reconciliation, aid to Afghanistan over the past 18 years by United States is a total of approximately $137 billion. For economic causes and establishing and sustaining Afghan national defense and security forces, initially not clearly stating which area this would end, this would be directed towards, but it is announced that the cut in aid would be directly affecting security forces, because, as I mentioned, $4 billion per year is consumed by them. It would be from the $4.2 billion that Pentagon gives assistance in its allotment to annual budget for 3/4 of the force of Afghanistan. On the other hand, fighting is already taking place in 16 provinces every day between Afghan forces and the Taliban. ISIS, Daesh, or Islamic State is not only knocking at the door, but has established itself initially. Afghanistan security forces are already overstretched and worried, fighting at one end with insurgents and at the other end with foreign terrorists. They are in a civil war, they are in a war simultaneously. Any reduction in their training, in equipment or facilitation will ruin the whole process of counter-terrorism militarily and Doha peace process politically. Being the graveyard of empires, strategy for Afghanistan has been continuously revised on many occasions due to its increasing intricacies. President Trump is in one of his speeches stated this thing that and he said this in 2017, that political settlement through effective efforts of the military is possible, making it evident that Afghanistan future is military and security centric. Accelerated efforts on their behalf are a clear indication of the hasty withdrawal of America trying to execute. For example, President Trump has stated he has stated this thing that somehow he has stated this thing that somehow Afghanistan's peace process will be more Afghan-led. But later on, they started negotiations with the Taliban directly. It was not Afghan-led process, and we see that in that peace process, Kabul regime was absent. So under the prevailing political circumstances, possibility of myopic decision-making can't be neglected. Examining it under the state-level analysis of foreign policy, it is an apparent win for Trump, especially considering upcoming elections in November this year. The withdrawal entails two alternative possibilities: an apt contingency plan for the stability of the region, or just another reminiscent of its past endeavors. Last time, when the US won its war against Soviet Union in Afghanistan during 1991, that I mentioned in the beginning, it left this land in haste. Hence, with US short-sightedness, a wonderful victory of winning Cold War was converted into a stupid defeat by the rise of Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. This time, reducing US military assistance to Afghanistan will be counted in the same para: premature, insane, untimely, and short-sightedness. Considering how ethnic clashes perpetuate the tattered social fabric of the country, they have crept into Afghan military, and an inept dealing can obviously prove detrimental. Lawmaker Abdul Qadir Kalatawal emphasized that if forces don't receive needed support, it could lead to factions within the army, and this can result in division of Afghanistan. According to another spokesperson for the Defense Ministry, General Muhammad Zahir Azmi, forces have been given a more nationalistic coloration by having quotas based on ethnicity, which means 40 to 45% is for Pashtuns, 30 to 35% is for Tajiks, 10 to 12% is for Hazara, and 8 to 10% is for Uzbeks and other groups respectively. Despite these measures to curb the tension, the Afghan army is still dominated by the minority from the north, which is non-Pashtuns, and they accumulated a total of 55%, as I stated earlier, who see Taliban as oppressors, majority of whom are Pashtuns. Given the above statistics, it is highly likely that forces in minority would be inclined towards backing the current announced president by the official Independent Election Commission of Afghanistan. Dr. Ashraf Ghani, while Dr. Abdullah, ethnically he is non-Pashtun, has a chance to garnering the support of this non-Pashtun majority in the military. This would divide military forces. They will be in turbulence because of ethnically fractured and fragile Afghan society. Needless to say that the lack of Afghan government's representation at the signing of the accord, that is US directly having engagement with the Pashtun Taliban, only fuel to the fire. Non-Pashtuns feel alienated during the whole process. This grudge may clearly be seen in the intransigent attitude of non-Pashtun representative Dr. Abdullah for not accepting peace brokers' role of both Zalmay Khalilzad as well as Mike Pompeo for a national unity government, which had resulted in announcing Mike Pompeo a cut of $1 billion per year in Afghanistan's assistance. US has and continues to play a key role in the war-torn region, and only long-term strategic depth and well-out region. If failed to do so, the country is susceptible to another chapter of turbulence. How the 11 years of civil war followed a poorly planned withdrawal by the Soviet Union in 1989. A multi-billion-dollar army needs support rather than punishment. Afghanistan army is already trained and tired of an unending series of wars taking place at home. Reduction in their budget will result in fractions in their ranks and files. This may lead to balkanization of Afghanistan at ethnic and sub-ethnic level, which will hamper the US interest in the region. With US haste policies, no more to Frankenstein's effect in Afghanistan, in this region at large. American regional strategy and interests still depend on Afghanistan's government and its security forces. Any reduction in American assistance to Afghanistan will be detrimental to the interest of United States in the region as well as neighboring countries.